srimadbhagavatam ki jai. All glories to the Son of the Lord. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So, this morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, entitled Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 13, The Descendants of Dhruva Maharaj, and we're on text 25. Maitre Vacha Angoshwan Medam Rajashir Ajahara Mahakratam Najagmur Devatastasmin Ahuta Brahmavadibihi Matrevacha Angoshwamedam Rajashir Ajahara Mahakratam Najagmur Devatastasmin Ahuta Brahmavadibihi Trevacha Angushvamedam Rajashir Ajahara Mahakratum Najagmur Devatastasmin Ahuta Brahmavadibihi.
Maitre Mangosametam Rajashu
Ajahara Mahakritam
Ajahara Mahakritam
Tasmin
Najagmur Devatas Tasmin
Avta Brahmavadivi
Amruta Brahmavadivihi. Maitreya Vacha Angosametam Rajashu Ajahara Mahakritam Najagmur Devatas Tasmin Amruta Brahmavadivihi.
Word by word. Maitreya Vacha. Maitreya answered. Angaha. King Anga. Ashwamedam. Ashwamedha sacrifice. Rajarishihi. The saintly king. Ajarhara. Executed. Mahakrutum. Great sacrifice. Na. Not. Ajagmuhu. Came. Devataha. The demigods. Tasmin. In that sacrifice. Ahutaha. Being invited. Brahmavadibihi. By the brahmanas. Expert in executing sacrifices. Translation. Sri Maitreya replied, My dear Vidura, once the great king Anga arranged to perform the great sacrifice known as Ashwamedha. All the expert Brahmins present knew how to invite the demigods, but in spite of their efforts, no demigods participated or appeared in that sacrifice. Purport. A Vedic sacrifice is not an ordinary performance. The demigods used to participate in such sacrifices, and the animals sacrificed in such performances were reincarnated with new life. In this age of Kali, there are no powerful Brahmins who can invite the demigods or give renewed life to animals. Formerly, the Brahmins well conversant in Vedic mantras could show the potency of the mantras, but in this age, because there are no such Brahmins, all such sacrifices are forbidden. The sacrifice in which horses were offered was called Ashwamedha. Sometimes cows were sacrificed, Gavalmbabhya, not for eating purposes, but to give them new life in order to show the potency of the mantra. In this age, therefore, the only practical yajna is Sankirtan yajna, or chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra 24 hours a day. So I'll just read a few more. 26. The priests engaged in the sacrifice then informed King Anga, O king, we are properly offering the clarified butter in the sacrifice, but despite all our efforts, the demigods do not accept it. O king, we know that the paraphernalia to perform the sacrifice is well collected by you with great faith and care and is not polluted. Our chanting of the Vedic hymns is also not deficient in any way. For all the Brahmins and priests present here are expert and are executing the performances properly. Purport. It is a practice of the Brahmins conversant with the science to pronounce a Vedic mantra in the right accent. The combination of the mantra and the Sanskrit words must be chanted with the right pronunciation, otherwise it will not be successful. In this age, the Brahmins are neither well versed in the Sanskrit language nor very pure in practical life. But by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, one can attain the highest benefit of sacrificial performances. Even if the Hare Krishna mantra is not chanted properly, it still has so much potency that the chanter gains the effect. So just one more. Dear King, we do not find any reason that the demigods should feel insulted or neglected in any way. But still the demigods who are witnesses for the sacrifice do not accept their shares. We do not know why this is so. Purport. It is indicated here that if there is negligence on the part of the priest, the demigods do not accept their share in sacrifices. Similarly, in devotional service, there are offenses known as seva aparad. Those who are engaged in worshipping the deity, Radha and Krishna, in the temple should avoid such offenses in service. The offenses in service are described in the Nectar of Devotion. We simply make a show of offering services to the deity, but do not care for the seva aparad. Certainly the Radha Krishna deity will not accept offerings from such non-devotees. Devotees engaged in temple worship should not, therefore, manufacture their own methods, but should strictly follow the regulative principles of cleanliness, and then offerings will be accepted. Om Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshulan Militamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karitavachalam Pangam Nangai Tegirim Yakripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Diritanam Vansha Kapati Bishta Kripa Sindhu Bevicha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gauda Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, a very well-quoted verse that devotees quote quite often, Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam, kalau nasteva, nasteva, nasteva gatinata, which is explaining that the process for this particular age, that we're in the age of Kali, is to chant the holy names, and there's no other way, there's no other way, there's no other way, alternative than this. So yeah, that verse is there, and then there's another verse or another part of a song by Narottam Das Thakur. He says, Go Lokara Prema Dan Harinam Sankirtan. So the holy name of Krishna has descended from the spiritual world. It's been imported from the spiritual world. One devotee, Narendra Prabhu, he made the point that it's one of the only things not imported from China, the holy name. Because everything else comes, the clock, this, that, everything. Not everything, but a lot of things. It's hard to find something produced in America. So this isn't coming from there, it's coming from the spiritual world. So the idea is that if that is the process, then and Prabhupada would say that many times. He would say there was one young man in the audience in crazy San Francisco, right? Hippie, crazy San Francisco. We can't even imagine, actually, how wild that was, especially Prabhupada coming from Vrindavan and this and that. But it was really wild. And you get some idea of it. If you watch Following Srila Prabhupada, you see the type of people that were in the that Prabhupada was preaching to. And also if we read the Lilamrita, we get some idea. But there's a man, and he was probably drugged out and crazy for so many reasons probably, and he was complaining to Prabhupada, my mind, it's really causing me a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. What can I do? Please help me, Swamiji, please help me. And then Prabhupada said, well, you have to take to the process of chanting the holy names. And then the man said that another 2 times, my mind. And then Prabhupada said, this is my only medicine, please take it. So yeah, we should also understand that this is our medicine, and this is what we engage in. We engage in chanting the holy names mainly as the idea that it is part of the main part of our healing process. So yeah, we want to be serious about it. But in being serious, we also want to be careful, because we don't want to be serious, you could say, at the expense of committing other offenses towards other living entities and so on. Seva aparad, Srila Prabhupada mentions. So sometimes devotees could be so serious that they forget other devotees, right? They're so serious about chanting the holy names that they just may offend devotees because whatever. Or I remember I would when I first joined this temple, my full-time service was to distribute books. And somehow or other we had some brahmacharis, but every time I was trying to get out of the door, they would always try to talk with me, kind of like have some rasa, some relationship, kind of, joke and laugh. And I was trying to be respectful and, kind and considerate and all that, but in my mind I was saying, I don't got time for this. I got to go. I got to go out on books. And I don't know if they sense that or not, but taking that to extreme level, you could say, hey, don't waste my time. I'm out of here. Like, you could even say, oh, you're sitting back at the temple. What are you doing? I'm hitting the streets, to shoot books. Get out of my way and need a fight, push them or something. Leave them in the dust, the dust of New Govardhan, push them. So, yeah, the idea is to be careful. And one devotee, or Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he wrote a book. He wrote many books, but one of the books was describing offenses, specifically Vaishnava aparad, and he was quoting some acharyas and explaining that this word aparad, it means apa, which means without, and radha means the mercy of Srimati Radharani, which, of course, it's not easy, not at all, to understand Srimati Radharani. But Srila Prabhupada would say that, she's, you could say, in charge of devotional service. This is how we get entrance by the mercy. She's the softer counterpart of Krishna, more merciful. So, if we're out without that mercy, that means that what happens then, if we're out without the mercy of Srimati Radha or Krishna, then what happens then is we get a flood of material desires that enter our heart. And if that flood of material desires isn't checked, then that could cause a lot of problems for a devotee, because one of the basic principles of Lord Chaitanya's movement and the whole process of Krishna consciousness is to somehow get free of material desires and cultivate spiritual desires. So by offenses, desires will enter. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, right? Nadanam najanam nasundarim kavatam vajagadish kame mama janmani janmani ishvare bhavatad bhakti rahoti kitvi. So he doesn't say that. He's not teaching us to pray for wealth or in the women or followers or riches or anything like that, but he's saying we should pray for pure devotional service, life after life. So that's the standard of that's the highest standard, and that's the standard that we should try to get to, complete freedom from material desires. So by offending others, that could be a problem. It won't work. Anyways, kind of on a side note, but I was somewhere. I went to Phoenix for a day recently, and there was this little girl at the temple, and she was wearing a shirt, and it said, "Women rule the universe." The little girl, like she was really small, like 3 years old, and she's wearing a shirt, "Women rule the universe." And I thought, oh, that's pretty funny. And of course you could think, oh, well, what is this, like a feminist t-shirt, or what is? But I thought about it, I tried to think about it in relation to Krishna consciousness, and I thought that, yeah, that's actually true, because in the material world, it's Durgadam, Maya is ruling, right? And in the spiritual world, Srimati Radharani is in charge. So, anyways. So Prabhupada gave the example that, or he gave a talk one time at some very wealthy person's house, Mrs. Birla, one of the richest persons in India at the time, and she asked, she wanted Prabhupada to speak on a particular subject, and the subject that she wanted Prabhupada to speak on is how to live a successful life. Now, of course, from ordinary standards of mundane people, she was leading a very successful life, mainly because she was one of the wealthiest women in the world. But Srila Prabhupada, he spoke on that, how to live a successful life, and he quoted Mahatmanastamam Partha Daivam Praktimashrita from the Bhagavad Gita, in which Krishna says that the Mahatmas, the great souls, are under the shelter of the divine energy. They're not under the shelter of the material energy. And Srila Prabhupada went to go on to say that that's the success of life, is to transfer ourselves from the control of the material energy, means Durga, and take under the shelter of the divine energy, which Srila Prabhupada says, Srimati Radharani. And Prabhupada went to say that Durga, when we're under the shelter of Durga, then she is always punishing us. And therefore she has her trident with the 3 prongs. And these 3 prongs are representing the 3 miseries of material existence, which everybody is and their mother is familiar with. The pain caused from the body, from the mind, from other living entities. So it's quite a... We have fun with that quite a lot sometimes, huh? All the pains of body, mind, and others. So, so that's the idea, to transfer ourselves. And therefore chanting of the holy name, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So that's what's saying that the Mahatmas do. They're taking shelter, Satatam Kirtayanto Mam, always chanting my glorious Krishna saying. And yeah, in relation to chanting successfully, we have to deal with everything and everyone's success carefully, properly. So on the altar, our services that we do on the altar, if we're very careful and meticulous and clean and punctual and everything we're recommended to do, and we're not speculating some things, then that will help us in our chanting. And if we're chanting nicely, that will help us in our service on the altar. And similarly, if we're chanting nicely, it will help us with our devotee relations. And if we have nice devotee relations, that will help us with our chanting. So they're all working together. They're all interconnected. So these offenses, they will affect, I just said they'll affect our chanting. So in relation to dealing with others, I also saw an interesting shirt. This is the last shirt example. But there was this woman, she was wearing a shirt, T-shirt, and then she had a few kids with her, and she said, "It's not that I'm bossy, I just have better ideas." So it's not that I'm bossy, I just have better ideas than you, so you got to listen to me. So, okay, fine. So whether one thinks they have better ideas or which, anyways. So the point is to try to work with others, try to cooperate with them, and maybe it might happen that others, at times, may have better ideas than us. That may happen sometimes. It does. So, Srila Prabhupada's mentioned here, the purports and so on, is that we're not qualified to perform all these ancient Vedic yagyas with the clarified butter and mantras chanted exactly perfectly. But he's advising that we chant Hare Krishna. So that's the idea. We want to give ourselves to the Sankirtan mission, and we want to, you could say, sacrifice ourselves in the fire of Sankirtan mission. Or else, I mean, what's the value of our lives? If we really think about it, what's the value of our lives? The only value of our lives is that we do something good with it, and the best thing to do with it is try to give Krishna consciousness, to be Krishna conscious. Or else the Shastra says that it's actually a animalistic life, or like a bestial life. There's that famous shloka Srila Prabhupada would always quote, or he would quote quite often from the Hitopadesh, Ahara nidra bayamaitanam cha samana yam etat pashubir naranam dharma hitesham adiko vishesha dharmena hina pashubi samanaha. So he's saying that both animals and humans, they share the same activities. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending. But the special property of the humans is that they're able to engage in spiritual life. They're without spiritual life, humans are on the level of animals. So you could say in many ways, oh, that's kind of strong. If I don't go to church, I want to go to the temple, if I don't go to the mosque, if I don't engage in any type of spiritual life, then I'm an animal. Well, that's what Hita Badesh is saying, that we have to engage in spiritual life, or what's the difference? So at this particular time in history, which we're now in, or whatever, this particular time we're in, it is more than ever, actually, people need the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. They need the mercy of Krishna more than ever. And why is that? Because just by nature, over time, things degrade. So, yeah, people's consciousness is just degrading. And we could give hundreds and thousands and millions of examples in relation to this, which I'm sure a lot of us we're familiar with. So we should want to help the situation. We should want to help the situation, and that is considered to be the best use of our human form of life. Anybody could just eat, sleep, mate, and defend. Animals, humans, it's nothing, although people think it's very special. And whatever, we have our prasadam and this and that, and of course that's special, but people think these propensities are so special, they glorify them unlimitedly to the largest extent. That's what modern materialistic society is doing, just huge glorification of the body and what the body could do, and the enjoyment from the body. But it's sad, actually, and it's unhealthy. It's sick. It's sad. It's wrong. It's actually just absolutely wrong. So it's over glorification of the biological urges of the humans, and this is happiness. So we should try to understand these things, and then try to help the situation by sacrificing our life in the Sankirtan movement. Which, by doing that, we'll actually get the highest thing, Krishna Prem. So lastly, practically speaking, to do that, one has to take on some service. They may clean the bathrooms every Sunday and chant their rounds and take prasad, but that's great, that's glorious. If they could do that for years on end, that is actually a worshipful personality, if they clean the bathrooms. Or taking care of tulsi, or deity worship, or book distribution, or something to carry on the mission. And it doesn't necessarily matter what it is, but something. So there's an interesting pastime which Shrutakirti says about Srila Prabhupada. It says that they were in Los Angeles. Shrutakirti was Prabhupada's personal secretary servant. And they arrived in Los Angeles, and all the devotees were jumping up and down. There's hundreds of devotees, and they're jumping really high in the sky and crying and shouting and Jai Prabhupada, and everybody was crying, actually. Everybody was crying in ecstasy. But he said there was one person not crying, and that was him. So he was feeling really bad about this. He was like, oh, this is horrible. I'm a terrible person. I'm hard-hearted. Why aren't I having these emotions that my god sisters and god brothers are having for Srila Prabhupada? What's wrong with me? So he was feeling really bad. So then when he went to New Dwarka, he was there with Srila Prabhupada, and he said he was massaging Prabhupada, his back, which means he couldn't see Prabhupada's face. So he was massaging Srila Prabhupada. He describes he couldn't see Prabhupada's face. Massaging, and then he asked Prabhupada the question. He said he didn't want to ask him, talking to his face, because he was so ashamed. So he asked him when he couldn't see his face. So he said, Prabhupada, all of your disciples have so much love for you, it makes me feel so bad. I lack this intense love. When I'm with you at the airport, when I can see everyone dancing, chanting, and crying, I have so much association with you, yet I do not feel this overwhelming love like they do. And then he says, I'd hope they say, he said that he hoped Prabhupada would say something to relieve his mind. And then he said that Prabhupada just remained silent. He didn't say anything. So he said, tormented, I finished the massage and went back to the room to finish preparing his lunch. After he chanted Gayatri, he called me into his room. As I entered, I offered my obeisance. He had a serious look on his face. And then Prabhupada asked him a question, so do you like serving me? And then he said, yes, Prabhupada, I like serving you. I like serving you very much. And then Prabhupada said, then that is love. Everyone can do so many things, singing, dancing, jumping up and down, but you're actually doing something. Isn't this love? I guess so, Srila Prabhupada said. So you just do your service, he continued. That is all that is necessary. This is what love means, to do service. So people say, oh, I love Prabhupada, I love Krishna, right? I love the devotees. Okay, fine, that's great, wonderful sentiments. But there has to be some service. And service doesn't mean just, you do it for a day or two, or you do it when it's convenient. It means to do service day after day, week after week, year after year, long term. And that's what Srila Prabhupada wants. He wants us to surrender to particular service, to carry on the mission. So if we do that, engage in the chanting process, engage in the service of avoiding the 10 offenses, then Krishna will accept our offerings, Prabhupada will accept our offerings, and that will be the success, that we're able to offer something. And as much devotion we can muster up. All right, so does anyone have any questions or comments?
I have comments. I'll take questions first.
Okay.
I just have a question in regards to, you were talking about aparadhs and material desires being the reaction to those aparadhs.
Yeah.
So I was listening to a class by my spiritual master, and he was talking about Nectar of Devotion. Rupa Goswami explains that, by engaging in Krishna consciousness, one gets free of past karma. But even though one is getting free from past karma, there'll be the residue of that karma, and it could appear in the form of material desires. So let's say a devotee is not committing offenses, but there may be some material desire in his heart. How do we know the difference between that material desire and the material desire that's coming from aparadh?
Well, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say all the time this idea of self-reflection, so to analyze one's own heart all the time. And then if we need help with that, then we could ask devotees. If maybe we're not seeing everything within our heart clearly, so we could ask devotees, or maybe devotees will be so kind to tell us, hey, whatever. Give us some indication. So, there may be cases where, devotees are nice and they may not be committing any offenses and that, but they have material desires from the past that are lingering. And those may be very difficult to give up, but by the execution of Krishna consciousness, it's possible. But in relation to figuring out, is it material desires just from the past, or is it material desires from me committing offenses? It might be both, but inner reflection, honesty, and then also asking others or having devotees tell us. That's why there's the idea of shiksha gurus, mentors, all these types of different senior devotees, this and that, to kind of check us.
Thank you.
Balaram's answer is very good.
Just as a comment, Balaram's answer is very good. But if I have a disease, does it matter? Oh, I got it by touching that doorknob. No, it was the guy who sneezed on me on the bus. Maybe it was. So, however we have material desires in the heart, how we got it, and Prabhu would often answer like this, is not so important. What are we going to do with it? Either way, whatever the source, whatever the cause, I've got material desires. I would ask this, is there a different process for getting rid of if the material desires are because of offenses, well then what do I need to do to get rid of the material desires? If the material desires are due to some residual from a past life, what do I do to get rid of the material desires? Because either way I need to get, is there a different formula if there's a different source of the material desires?
Yeah, it says, oh, when one commits Vaishnava aparad, then they should, go to that Vaishnava, obey forgiveness, and then do some type of service to please that Vaishnava, and then if they're not pleased, if they're not forgiving you, then it says you just have to take shelter of the holy name, and by that taking shelter, then one will be forgiven. But usually devotees are forgiving, they'll forgive you. But so that's there with Vaishnava aparad. And it says with Seva aparad, if one commits offenses, there are certain prayers that one chants afterwards. Please forgive me, Lord, and please accept my service. But it says if you chant like a chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the offenses will be forgiven. So, yeah, there seems to be some different processes of reformation, or for different offenses. But the main thing is the purification of the heart. And the main thing is by chanting the holy name, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, right? Chaito Darpana Marjanam, Bhava Mahadava, purifying the consciousness. That's how we get free of those material desires in the association of devotees. And bathing our consciousness. So every day, people bathe, people brush their teeth. And if they don't, it's a problem. For that, it's a mode of ignorance, and it's a problem for people, Don't want to be around those people. So, similarly, yes, we have to bathe our consciousness every day in the chanting, hearing and chanting about Krishna. Because, this material world's quite a infected place. So therefore, every day, morning program, and we go to the holy tirthas at times and associate with devotees and stuff with the idea of purifying our consciousness. So there are different processes. Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
Anyone else have a question? Okay, just in this, you were making the point of, you told the Shruti Kirti's pastime. There is a devotee named Premarnava. He's passed away. And he was a wonderful kirtan leader. He was a black-bodied devotee and a wonderful kirtan leader. And Prabhupada had just gotten the Detroit temple. And Prabhupada told Premarnava, stay in Detroit and develop kirtan, because that will attract the neighbors. And Prabhupada had a whole program. Prabhupada wanted him to get a flatbed truck and travel around the city with a moving kirtan. Prabhupada wanted him to put pandal tents on the Sunday and have kirtan outside. Prabhupada had a whole plan, depending on Premarnava. Premarnava did not want to stay in Detroit. So he went different places, following Prabhupada was traveling along the East Coast. So the culmination of the thing was that but he always stayed in the back of the temple room, stood behind a pillar, so Prabhupada wouldn't see him. So Prabhupada was supposed to be out in his garden getting his massage, and wherever Prabhupada went, quite often they had just painted the place, So sure enough, they just painted Prabhupada's quarters where Prabhupada was staying, and they'd painted the window shut. And the smell of the paint was giving Prabhupada a headache. So he'd asked Brahmananda, as Prabhupada went out for massage, can you open the window? So Brahmananda's trying to get it. So he called for Premarnava, was just walking down the hall. He said, Premarnava, can you help? Because Premarnava's a strong guy. Can you help me open this window? So you've got Brahmananda and Premarnava trying to open this window in Prabhupada's darshan room. Prabhupada came back, sat down. So Premarnava was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm busted. So he tried to keep his back towards Prabhupada, thought he'd just sidle out and Prabhupada wouldn't see him. He just had made it. He was just halfway out the door. Prabhupada said, Premarnava. He was busted. Prabhupada said, why are you here? I told you to stay in Detroit. And Premarnava offered his reasons. And just to confirm, Prabhupada said, I'm looking for people who will stay in one place and develop. Otherwise, how will this movement go on? So both from an exterior reason, if devotees don't take responsibility and stay in a place or stay with a program and develop, if they're just, I was with Shivaram Swami, and this one devotee was saying he was going to this retreat and that retreat and this retreat, and they'd just come back. Shivaram Maharaj says, you're always retreating. When are you going to advance? Not that we shouldn't go to retreats, but if that's your whole life, when do you stand and fight armed with yoga? When do you develop something? So Prabhupada was making that point. And so externally, how will this movement go on if devotees don't stand up and take responsibility through thick and thin and develop a place? Also internally, it's not just, well, I'll do it for this, I'll sacrifice myself on the altar of the movement, but no. Internally, where will we learn to control our senses and our mind and our desires? Unless we stand and fight, stand up, push through Maya, push through difficulty, how will we grow? We'll stay unified. We'll continually be retreating. How will we advance? So your point is well taken, that by taking responsibilities, staying and developing, that's how one actually becomes spiritually. Not by dancing, not a
Yeah, just in super brief, Sridhar Swami, Srila Prabhupada's disciple, they asked him about developing project, and he said, "Oh yeah, you need 10 men and 10 years, dedicated 10 men and 10 years to really." But I was thinking about Tamal Krishna Goswami because you were talking about Premarnava, and anyways, it's a long story, but brief is that Tamal Krishna Goswami is taking all the brahmacharis from all the temples and Radha Damodar, this and that. And all the temple presidents were complaining to Prabhupada in Mayapur at the meeting. And
you spend a year cultivating somebody, they move into the temple or be just about to move into the temple. Tamal Krishna Maharaj's bus would come along and say, "Let us see the world."
yeah,
And you drain your temple. All the cream, just like
all the best ones.
Somebody just came along and harvested everything and said, "Bye."
Yeah, all the best ones you would take, right? So, so they're all complaining to Srila Prabhupada, and then Maharaj is standing in Mangalarti one day, and Trivikram Swami comes and he says, "Oh, Prabhupada wants to talk with you." And apparently Tamal Krishna Goswami says, "Oh, I'm not going," So Trivikram Swami says, "No, you have to go." He said, "Okay, fine." Then he went, and then Prabhupada was upset, and he said, "Oh, everybody's complaining. They're saying you're still in the man, this and that." And he said, "You should stop this program." And then Maharaj said, Tamal Krishna goes, well, what do you want me to do? Prabhupada, you want to go to the moon? Maybe I should just go to China." And then Prabhupada said, "Oh, that's a good idea. Maybe you should go to China." So then the next day, he went into the room, Prabhupada's room, and then Prabhupada was putting on his tilak. And then Prabhupada said, "Oh, I thought about what you said yesterday about going to China, and I think this is Krishna speaking through you. I think you should go." And then Tamal Krishna Goswami said, "Prabhupada, I was just joking." And then Prabhupada said, "Vaishnavas, they don't joke. I take this as Krishna saying this. And then no, Prabhupada, I don't want to go. And then Guru Kripa Swami said, "Oh, I'll go, Prabhupada." And then Prabhupada said, No, I want him to go." And we said Prabhupada was really angry because Tamal Krishna Goswami was refusing, and then said Prabhupada was putting on his tilak and his hand was shaking, out of anger. And then Prabhupada told Tamal Krishna Goswami, said, "I'm taking away this whole Radha Damodar program of yours, so either you go to China or you sit here in Mayapur and chant Hare Krishna. That's it. Those are your two options. I'm taking away everything." And then Tamal Krishna Goswami said, "Okay, Prabhupada, I'll do it." And he said from that point he understood that the whole purpose was to serve the spiritual master. That's the whole purpose of his spiritual life. The whole purpose was to please the spiritual master. And without that, what was the purpose? So that's what he understood from. And anyways, and then some things went on later, and then eventually he did go to China. But over the course of talking with Prabhupada and working things out, he eventually went. So now there's a nice thing going on in China.
And
So
you have to understand, you could, just like that, anyway, you could not get into China. China was 100% communist, 100% under Mao's thumb. You couldn't go into, you know how they went into China? Drista Swami, who was Kamal Krishna's assistant, his father was a big guy, either the president or on the board of Seagram's Liquor. Seagram is the biggest distributor of alcohol in the world.
Yeah.
They went in as sales representatives for Seagram's. That's how they were able to track, because if you go in under a tourist visa, it was just like Prabhu in Russia. You're on the bus, they know where you are. You stay in a government hotel, you have a government minder, and you only go to the places with a group too. You have no freedom. So how are they going to preach in China? So Tamal, that's how they got in. And what they used to do is, there was in every corner of every city of any value in the park, they had the English corner. Because English is the business language of the world. So everybody wants to learn English. In China, they all wanted, and it was authorized. And people would stand on a little box and practice their English. And somebody else would get on a little box and would create. And they would go back and forth trying to have conversations in English. And a crowd would gather because they wanted to learn English. So they would stand in their suits and ties in the parks and speaking English. And just because it was English, they'd get a crowd. And then they would begin to, weave in yoga, weave in meditation, weave in. And that's how, and now China's big. But it came because Tamal Krishna surrendered. He did not want to go. He gave up the Radha Damodar party. But just as Balarama was saying, the whole purpose is to please the spiritual master. And he wants me to do it. So because he surrendered, unbelievably, against all odds, boom, they cracked open China.
That's great. Yeah. I think I read recently one of the biggest book distributors in the world is there in China. I think I read that on the news that he distributed so many books. You could look it up, but recently.
The head were way over, but because you could not print in China unless you printed on a government press. You just had to have you could not do it. Every book was submitted for review, and it was rejected or accepted. In fact, if it was considered seditious or against the government or against the communist values, not only would they not print your book, they'd come and get you and throw you in jail or throw you out of the country. So even submitting the book, if it was rejected, even that was risky. So what to do? They arranged for Gopi Purandana. Gopi Purandana, anyone who knows, was our top Sanskrit scholar, just an amazing devotee. Self-taught Sanskrit. They arranged for Gopi to be the top government scholar on Indology. The guy was a vegetarian, Buddhist, living on tofu and barley water. I got the picture. Gopi went there with samosas, love jones, sandesh. And the guy became so blissed out. You see the picture. He's got this blissful smile. Gopi says he just stuffed about 3 samosas in the guy. After meeting Gopi and being so impressed, stuffed full of prasadam, he gave his permission. He said that India, is a rival tiger. They're a developing nation. We're going to be competing with them. We should understand their tradition, their culture, their values. And that's how we were able to print Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam and Light of the Bhagavat in China, both in Mandarin and Cantonese. Because they met that scholar who had never tasted samosas and gulab jamuns and signed. So they have so many stories.
It's nice.
Because at the point you're making, because he surrendered to the order of his spiritual master and stayed and did it. And it was not easy.
Yeah. All right, John.
The first initiated devotee in China, Kamal Krishna told me this first one,
Teaching University.
Yeah.
You know, English names sound funny in Chinese, and Chinese names sound funny in English, like been too fat or who flung down, you know, what's that about, you know? But they're bona fide Chinese names. I swear to you, the first devotee was H-Y-U, next name C-H-A-N-G, last name T-I-N-G. Yu Chan Ting. Some all said, well, he said, all right, that's it. Give him the holy name, and it'll all work out somehow or other. Yu Chan Ting. Sophie's story.
Oh, that's nice. You chanting.
Yu Chan Ting.
Jai. All right. Jai. Grantrad Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai.